बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। डियर स्टूडेंट्स, बिज़नेस इकनॉमिक्स ECO 400 के लेक्चर नंबर 19 में खुशामदीद। आप लोग आई होप के कोर्स को एंजॉय कर रहे होंगे। आज हम लेक्चर नंबर 19 पढ़ेंगे, सीखेंगे, लेकिन उससे पहले आई वुड लाइक टू रिवाइज व्हाट वी हैव लर्नड इन द प्रीवियस लेक्चर, इन लेक्चर नंबर 18। लेक्चर नंबर 18 में हमने बात की थी about the trade-off between inflation and unemployment, and we said that societies face short-term trade-off between unemployment and inflation. What was that trade-off? That whenever there is increase in inflation rate in the country or in the economy, unemployment goes down, there is a decrease in the unemployment rate. तो जब इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ती है तो अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट कम होती है। तो वी हैव ए inverse relationship between unemployment and inflation rate. Now, if policymakers want to expand aggregate demand, they can lower unemployment, but only at the cost of high inflation, right? So, if the government want to control reduce the unemployment rate, they can do that, but this is only possible at the cost of high inflation, because as we know that to lower the unemployment in the economy, government has to expand aggregate demand. Now, if we want to expand aggregate demand, so this could be possible by increasing money supply in the economy, right? So जब money supply बढ़ती है, aggregate demand बढ़ती है, जब aggregate demand बढ़ती है तो real output बढ़ती है, output बढ़ेगी तो unemployment कम होगी। जब unemployment कम होती है और एक साइड पे हमने मनी सप्लाई बढ़ाई तो उससे मुल्क में इन्फ्लेशन हो जाएगा, प्राइसेस बढ़ जाएंगी, इन्फ्लेशन रेट ज़्यादा हो जाएगा, राइट? सो and similarly, if the government want to lower inflation, it can be done, but at the cost of high unemployment rate in the economy. Why? Because in order to reduce inflation or control inflation in the economy, in the country, and the government can do this by reducing the money supply in the country, and if they reduce money supply in the country, then aggregate demand कम होगी, aggregate demand कम होती है तो output level जो produced है in the economy, that will go down. जब output कम होगी तो naturally supply कम होती है, and then the unemployment level go up. So inflation can be controlled or control at the cost of high unemployment rate. Now, the Phillips curve basically is the curve which illustrates or explains this trade-off that exists between inflation and unemployment in the short run. So we can say that inflation and unemployment are inversely related. और इसके बाद हमने सीखा, and the greater the aggregate demand for goods and services, the greater is the output in the economy, and the higher will be the overall price level. So higher the level of output results in lower of unemployment in the economy. उसके बाद हमने देखा, and उसके बाद we said that and we learned that unemployment eventually returns to its natural rate, so regardless of the rate of inflation. So whatever is the rate of inflation, in the long run unemployment rate will come to its natural rate of unemployment, and that is the rate around which the economy fluctuates all the time. So this is known as a natural rate hypothesis. Now, to reduce inflation, the federal government or the Fed has to pursue contractionary monetary policy. They have to reduce money supply in the economy in order to reduce inflation in the country. Now, to reduce inflation, economy must endure a period of high unemployment and low output. So whenever the government is controlling or reducing inflation in the country, so that period is associated with high level of unemployment and low level of output in the economy. So this is what we have learned in the last lecture. तो हमने बात की about the trade-off that exists between unemployment and inflation rate. Now we'll move to the today's topic of discussion. आज हम बात करेंगे, we'll try to see what kind of relationship is there between money and inflation. जैसा कि अभी हमने previous lecture में बात की थी कि money supply और inflation they are related. money supply बढ़ती है, inflation ज़्यादा हो जाता है, money supply कम होती है, inflation कम हो जाता है. तो उस को एक डिटेल में हम आज देखेंगे कि how these two variables or parameters are related with each other. And the sequence of the lectures will be like this. सबसे पहले हम बात करेंगे the connection between money and prices. Then we'll talk about money itself, definition of money, and then the functions and the types of money, and then finally we'll talk about quantity theory of money, and we'll try to relate the inflation or the prices with the quantity of money supply available in the economy. So this is the scope of discussion, today's discussion. तो इस तरह से हम चलेंगे. सबसे पहले start करते हैं and the connection between prices and the money. As we know that inflation rate, how we define inflation rate in the economy, that the percentage increase in the average level of prices is known as the inflation rate in the economy. Now, as we know that prices is equal to the amount of money required to buy a product, right? So price basically is the amount of money which is required to purchase a product. So because prices are defined in terms of money, so we need to consider first the nature of money, the supply of money, and the function of money. जैसा कि हमने कहा that prices are defined in terms of money, तो सबसे पहले हमें ये देखना होगा कि what is money and what are the functions of money and what we mean by supply of money, and then what are different types of money. तो सबसे पहले जब हम prices की बात करते हैं तो prices are measured or defined in terms of money. तो उससे पहले before we establish relationship between prices and money, we need to look into first about the different aspects of money itself, and then we'll try to link up these two parameter or variable, that is inflation and prices of the product. Now money, how we define money in the economy? Money is the stock of assets that can be readily used to make transactions in the country or in the economy, right? So it is a stock of assets available in the economy that can be used or readily used to make transaction. Now, if we want to buy or sell products as an individual consumer or as a firm, right, we use money as a medium of exchange or for the transactions, right? So money is known as the stock or the asset stock of all assets, and that can be readily used to make such kind of transaction in the economy is called or is known as money. Now there are different functions of money that we need to look into, right? So first function of money that it performs is the medium of exchange, or the as a medium. Money can be used for the transaction or for the exchange purpose, right? So in society, as an individual, as a firm, and when we are living in a society, in the country, we can use money as a medium of exchange. If we want to buy or sell products in the market, from the product market, we need money to use money to exchange goods, sell goods among each other, among ourselves, right? So money is one of the important measure which can be used to buy or sell products in the market, right? So this is one of the main function of money in the economy. Number two is the store of value. Transfer purchasing power from the present to the future. Money can be used to transfer purchasing power from the present to the future. Like we can buy, money can be used as a store of value. We can store value by using money, right? So we can basically transfer our purchasing power, the value, the purchasing power of the consumer from the present to the future, right? We can buy goods at the moment, at the present, and then use those goods in the future, right, whenever those products are needed, right? So money can be used for transfer of such purchasing power from present to future. Now the third function of the money is unit of account. money can be used as a unit of account by which everyone measures prices and values, right? So we can use, for example, बाजार में अगर जाते हैं, if you want to buy some product, right? So you ask how much is the price of per unit of the product, right? So that basically tells us how much money you are supposed to pay for a unit of a certain product, right? अगर for example हम बात करते हैं, if we want to buy like oranges, if we want to buy apples, right? So we ask how much you sell apple, how much is the price of 1 kg apples, right? Suppose they say 100 rupees, right? 100 basically rupee, 100 is the units basically to measure or to purchase those apples, right? So money can be used as a unit of account, right, by which we can use or purchase goods and services from the market. So money has three important functions as we discussed. One, as a medium of exchange, number two, as a store of value, and number three, as a unit of account. Now we'll talk about the types of money which are available in the economy. Now there are two types of money which are available in the economy. One is the fiat money. Now fiat money has no intrinsic value, जिसकी कोई खास ज़ाहिरन अगर उस चीज़ को आप यूज़ करें तो उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है. Like if the paper currency we use, it has no intrinsic value, right? So such type of money is known as the fiat money. Second type of money is the commodity money, and commodity money has a intrinsic value, right? For example, if we talk about gold, if gold in old days, as we know that gold was used as a medium of exchange or for the transaction, or as one of the measure of money, or one of the type of money in the old age, right? So gold is such type of money which has some intrinsic value. अगर इसको आप कहीं बेचें आप खरीदें तो इसकी कोई एक वैल्यू है जिसके बदले आपको you can get certain money also or certain product also in exchange, right? So money has two types. One is the fiat money which has no intrinsic value, like if we talk about paper money, जब हम paper money की बात करते हैं so that is fiat money. And when we talk about the money which has some intrinsic value like gold, तो इस तरह की जो money होती है उसको हम commodity money का नाम देते हैं, right? So this was all about the functions as well as the type of money is concerned. Now we'll try to differentiate between the two other parameters or variables like the money supply and the monetary policy. Now what is the difference between these two parameters? The money supply is the quantity of money available in the economy, right? Monetary policy is the policy which is the control over the money supply, right? So money supply is the total money supply or the money available in the economy, और उसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए जो पॉलिसी अडॉप्ट की जाती है that is monetary policy. Like अगर हम मनी सप्लाई को बढ़ाना चाहते हैं या मनी सप्लाई को कम करना चाहते हैं as it is required by the government or by the economy in order to control or regulate the economy, right? So जब भी कभी हमें मनी सप्लाई को कम बेश करना है, कम या ज़्यादा करना है, तो we'll take the help of monetary policy, right? So this is the difference between these two parameters or variable. Now who is controlling money supply in the economy in the country? Federal bank or the central bank in each of the country. He control or use the monetary policy to control money supply in the economy. Monetary policy is conducted by the central bank in any of the country. Now different economies, different countries has different names, the central banks. Like for example, if we talk about in US, the name of central bank is called the Federal Reserve, or in short they call it Fed, right? So in case of Pakistan, the central bank is called the State Bank of Pakistan. तो if you know, if अगर आप अखबार पढ़ते हैं, if you न्यूज़ सुनते हैं, तो स्टेट बैंक जो है from time to time they announce their monetary policies, Sometimes they adopt expansionary monetary policy, sometimes they adopt contractionary monetary policy. It depends on what is required to adjust or to regulate the economy, right? So this is one of the demand management policy, right? So we have two demand management policies in the economy. One is the monetary policy और दूसरी जो है फिजिकल पॉलिसी. तो यहाँ पे हम बात करें मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी की, जो कि यूज़ की जाती है बाय द फेडरल गवर्नमेंट, बाय द स्टेट बैंक ऑफ पाकिस्तान टू रेगुलेट द मनी सप्लाई इन द इकोनॉमी. Now there are different definitions given by money by economists of the money. So different measures can be used. Now इस slide में आपको you can see that three different definitions of money or money supply. As we know that one is the currency which is available in the economy, that is part of money supply. So now when we look into the definition of money supply 1, that is M1, now what it includes as a money supply, M1 includes currency in circulation plus demand deposits with the banks, traveler checks and other checkable deposits. So all these are included in M1, that is the first definition of money supply. Now second M2 definition, the second definition of money supply is equal to M1. So whatever we have discussed in M1, that is and M1 include currency plus demand deposits, travel checks and other checkable deposits. So M1 plus some other things like small time deposits, those deposits which are in the bank for the short time period, saving deposits by the different people who save their money, plus money market mutual funds and money market deposits accounts. So all these are included in M2, are the second definition of money supply, right? So M2 is the composition of M1 plus small time deposits, saving deposits, money market mutual funds, money market deposits accounts. All these are included in M2, right? So now there is another definition of money supply, जो तीसरी definition है M3, उसमें क्या क्या शामिल होता है? Now M3 includes M2 plus large time deposits for the large time, for the longer time are included in M3. Repurchase agreements, the agreements for repurchasing the products, institutional money market mutual funds balances are included in M3. So अगर हम बात करें total money supply की available in the economy, so it has different definitions M1, M2 and M3. So अगर आप तीसरे कॉलम में देखें स्लाइड में, so we have a currency available in the economy which is $598.7 billion. Then we have M1 which is currency plus demand deposits and other travel checks and so on. Then it will become 1174.0. Now M2, further we add something in M1 and we'll get 5480.1, and then M3 is M2 plus large time deposits, repurchase agreement, institutional money market and mutual funds balances are included in M3. So if we add up these three different types of deposits in M2, we'll get the amount. It is 8054.4. So total money supply available in the economy by all definitions is 8054.4 billion US dollar in 2002, because we are just considering and that the month is particular month which is April 2002. So this was about the definitions of money supply, how we define money supply in the economy, right? तो जिसमें हमने देखा कि इसकी different definitions हैं. Currency जो है is a part of in all definitions, and then you can differentiate each definition in terms of deposits, different kind of deposits. It's the demand deposits, short-term deposits, and long-term deposits, and some other sort of deposits in the bank, right? So there are different definitions that can be used for measuring money supply in the economy. Now we'll come to the quantity theory of money. Basically here we'll try to, with the help of this theory, we'll try to develop the kind of relationship that exists between prices and quantity, of money, or the money supply, right? So this was the theory that was given by Milton Friedman. He is a monetarist, a monetary economist. He has given the theory, and he said that inflation or the money supply or the prices are directly related to money supply. Whenever there is an increase in money supply, or whenever there is increase in the growth rate of money supply in the economy, this will increase the level of prices in the country or in the economy. तो इसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे, एक्सप्लेन करेंगे कि किस तरह से हम ये कह सकते हैं that prices are directly related, or inflation is directly related to the money supply. Now a simple theory that basically link the inflation rate to the growth rate of money supply in the economy. So this is the definition of QTM, quantity theory of money, that a simple theory that explain the relationship between inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply. Now to explain this theory, we start or begin with the concept of velocity, not elasticity, where we start or begin with the concept of velocity. Now velocity basically kya cheez hai? It is the rate at which money circulate in the economy. This is the rate at which the money moves or circulate in the economy. Now definition kya is the number of times the average dollar or the rupee will change hands in given time period. Now we can explain this velocity concept with the help of example. In 2001, if we talk about, there are $500 billion in transactions. The money supply actually is $100 billion. So the average dollar is used in 5 transactions in 2001. So we can say that the velocity is 5. So इस example में हमने क्या देखा कि in 2001, in a particular time period, if the level of money supply in the economy is 500 and the total transactions in the economy are $500 billion, so हम कह सकते हैं कि each dollar basically is used or is in circulation is in transaction 5 times in transactions, right, in 2001. So the velocity is 5. Actual money supply is 100. अगर उसको 100 को 5 से मल्टीप्लाई कर देते हैं तो you will get the total transactions of the money supply in the economy. तो हमने क्या नतीजा अखज़ किया कि अगर हमारे पास, अगर हम पाकिस्तान की बात करें कि if we have 1000 note of 5,000 rupees and the total transaction of that 1000 is, let us say, 5,000, so what would be the velocity in this case? That is again 5, right? Each note of 5,000 rupees circulate in the economy 5 times, right? तो जितनी दफ़ा कोई नोट सर्कुलेट करता है इकोनॉमी में वो उसकी वेलोसिटी होती है, और अगर आप उसको मल्टीप्लाई कर दें टोटल जो मनी सप्लाई अवेलेबल है इकोनॉमी में उसके साथ, तो यू विल गेट द टोटल ट्रांजैक्शंस ऑफ इन द इकोनॉमी. We'll continue with this concept. This suggests the following definition. So जब हमने कहा कि velocity is equal, कहा कि अगर money supply को number of circulation से आप multiply कर देते तो you will get the velocity. तो we can say that, इससे हम ये definition निकाल सकते हैं कि velocity is equal to total transaction in the economy over money supply. जैसे कि हमने previous example में देखा कि टोटल ट्रांजैक्शन कितनी है 500 एंड मनी सप्लाई कितनी है $100 बिलियन, राइट। अगर 500 को 100 पे डिवाइड करेंगे तो दिस विल गिव अस द वेलोसिटी दैट इज 5 टाइम्स, राइट। सो इस इक्वेशन में अगर आप देखें तो v इज द वेलोसिटी, t is the total value of transactions, m is the level of money supply in the economy. So I will continue because हमारा objective जो है ये है कि हम with the help of quantity theory of money हम एक्सप्लेन करना चाह रहे हैं कि प्राइसेस के साथ मनी सप्लाई का क्या रिलेशनशिप है, राइट। हाउ वाई प्राइसेस राइजेस विद द इंक्रीज इन मनी सप्लाई, और उस कॉन्सेप्ट को हम एक्सप्लेन करना चाह रहे हैं विद द हेल्प ऑफ क्वांटिटी थ्योरी ऑफ मनी के जरिए हम एक्सप्लेन करना चाह रहे हैं। तो हम इसको कंटिन्यू करेंगे। हम सपोज वी यूज नॉमिनल जीडीपी विच इज प्राइस इनटू income as a proxy of the transaction in the economy, then the above equation can be written as V is equal to price into Y over M. अब P into Y क्या चीज़ है, is the nominal GDP। और अगर हम nominal GDP को यूज़ करें as a proxy variable for transactions, तो हम ऊपर वाली इक्वेशन जो वेलोसिटी की है उसको लिख सकते हैं कि V is equal to PY over M। Now where price is the price of output, GDP deflator, Y is the quantity of output, real GDP, and P into Y is the value of nominal output. Now if we rearrange, so the previous equation, yes, पिछली slide पे हमने देखा कि V is equal to P and Y over M, so if we just multiply, cross multiply this equation, we'll get MV is equal to PY, right? So this is the identity, this is the basically quantity theory of money equation. It holds by definition of the variables, right? So we can say that we started the concept of velocity and then we come up with this equation that is known as the identity, and this is the quantity theory of money equation. MV is equal to price into Y. Now we'll continue with this equation, इसको मज़ीद आगे explain करेंगे और try to develop the direct relationship between prices and money supply. Now in this slide जो कि आपको नज़र आ रही है, इसमें हम कोशिश करेंगे try to explain the relationship between money demand and the quantity equation जो कि पिछली हमने अभी ड्रा की, MV is equal to PY। तो how these two variables are related, quantity demand को आप किस तरह relate कर सकते हैं with quantity equation। Now as we know that M over P is the real money balances, it is basically the purchasing power। ये हमने पिछली lectures में देखा था कि M over P is the purchasing power of money supply actually। Now a simple money demand function can be written as M over P raised power D, D is for the, just to see show you कि ये demand function है। M over P is equal to KY, right, where K basically is how much of the money people hold or wish to hold for each dollar of income। के हमें ये बताता है कि कितना जो है परसेंटेज ऑफ इनकम लोग अपने पास डिमांड फॉर मनी के लिए रखते हैं, होल्ड करते हैं, राइट। सो मनी डिमांड फंक्शन M over P इज इक्वल टू KY। और पिछली जो हमने अभी क्वांटिटी ऑफ QTM हमने क्वांटिटी ऑफ मनी इक्वेशन जो ड्रा की है दैट इज MV over P। अगर इसको हम अगर रिलेट करें तो हम कह सकते हैं कि अगर हम इसको रीअरेंज करें इस इक्वेशन से M over P, P को उस साइड पे ले जाएं, डिवाइड करें। इफ वी डिवाइड दिस इक्वेशन बाय P ऑन बोथ साइड एंड एज वेल एज V ऑन बोथ साइड, तो विल गेट बेसिकली, चले मैं आपके लिए इसको कर देता हूं कि वी हैव द क्वांटिटी थ्योरी ऑफ मनी इक्वेशन विद अस, MV इज इक्वल टू PY। अब इस इक्वेशन को अगर हम डिवाइड करें दोनों साइड पे P से और V से, व्हाट विल गेट, विल गेट जब इसको डिवाइड करेंगे on both side by V and P, so we'll get this M over P on the left side and we'll get 1 over V into Y. So this will become M over P is equal to 1 over V Y. So we can say that अगर हम आप relate करें इसको तो we can say that K is equal to 1 over C is inverse of velocity. When people hold lots of money relative to their income, so as we said, if K is high, so money change hands infrequently, V will be low. तो अगर आप relate करना चाहें इन दो concept को, that is the K और V को, that is the wish of the people to hold money, that is K, and velocity हम कह सकते हैं कि ये जब V कम होगी, velocity low होगी, तो K जो है वो हाई होगी. यानी मीन्स सर्कुलेशन में जो नोट्स हैं, जो मनी सप्लाई सर्कुलेशन में है, अगर वो कम हो जाती है तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि लोग डिमांड फॉर मनी ज़्यादा करें. दे आर होल्डिंग मोर मनी इंस्टेड ऑफ पुटिंग द मनी इन बैंक्स आर इन सर्कुलेशन. तो वेलोसिटी का और होल्डिंग मनी का इनवर्स रिलेशनशिप है. अगर वेलोसिटी कम होगी तो डिमांड फॉर मनी ज़्यादा होगी, लोग ज़्यादा मनी होल्ड करेंगे अपने पास, राइट. तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि जब डिमांड फॉर मनी ज़्यादा होती है तो वेलोसिटी या सर्कुलेशन ऑफ मनी जो है इकोनॉमी में वो कम हो जाती है. सो वी हैव रिलेटेड, वी हैव ड्राइव्ड द डिमांड फॉर मनी फंक्शन फ्रॉम द क्वांटिटी थ्योरी ऑफ मनी इक्वेशन, और वो हमने कहा कि एम ओवर पी डी इज इक्वल टू के वाई. के इज द amount of money which people hold are kept with themselves for different purposes, for purchasing of goods and services. Now we'll continue and back to the quantity theory of money equation QTM, which is MV is equal to PY. So if we assume that V is constant, velocity is constant, and it is given, so we can assume that, and we can suppose that V is equal to V bar. So with this assumption we can rewrite the equation of QTM. तो क्या बनेगी हमारी इक्वेशन QTM की? हमने सिंपल क्या किया कि हमने अज्यूम किया कि V इज इक्वल टू V बार, कि V जो है वेलोसिटी जो है वो कांस्टेंट है, तो हमने V को रिप्लेस करना है विद V बार उस इक्वेशन में, और हमारे पास जो नई इक्वेशन आएगी वो क्या बनेगी? MV बार इज इक्वल टू प्राइस इनटू आउटपुट PY. सो हाउ द प्राइस लेवल इज डिटरमिन्ड, किस तरह से हम इस इक्वेशन से प्राइसेस को डिटरमिन कर सकते हैं? बिकॉज द अल्टीमेट ऑब्जेक्टिव, जैसे कि मैंने आपको शुरू में बताया था, हमारा क्या है QTM से निकालना कि हाउ प्राइसेस आर लिंक्ड are related with the money supply, or how we can explain the direct relationship between prices and quantity of money available in the economy. So when V is constant, the money supply determines nominal GDP. जब हम ये कहते हैं कि V constant है तो सिर्फ जो money supply है वो जो इस इक्वेशन में डिटरमिन करेगी the level of nominal GDP, which is price into Y. As we know that real GDP is determined by the economy, supplies of capital and labor and the production function, जो कि हमने पढ़ा था चैप्टर 3 में. शुरू में हमने कहा था कि production function output Y or the real output or the real GDP is a function of capital and labor. Output is determined by the mix of capital and labor. हम प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस में कुछ यूनिट कैपिटल के लगाते हैं, कुछ यूनिट लेबर के लगाते हैं और एक सर्टेन लेवल ऑफ आउटपुट प्रोड्यूस करते हैं, राइट. सो रियल जीडीपी इन द इकोनॉमी इज डिटरमिन्ड बाय द सप्लाईज ऑफ कैपिटल एंड लेबर इन द इकोनॉमी, एंड दैट कैन बी डन थ्रू द प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन, जो कि हमने चैप्टर 3 में पढ़ा था. और हमने प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन की इक्वेशन लिखी थी जो कि ये थी कि y इज ए फंक्शन ऑफ कैपिटल एंड लेबर. y इज फॉर आउटपुट, k is for capital, L is for labor, and F is for the function. How these two variables, two sides of equation are related, that is explained in F. Now we can say that the price is equal to nominal GDP over real GDP. So this is one of the definition. जैसा कि हमने पिछले चैप्टर में पढ़ा, हमने कहा कि इन्फ्लेशन को मेजर करने के डिफरेंट तरीक़ेकार हैं, और one of the way, as we learned in the previous lecture, was the GDP deflator, or GDP deflator is one of the measure of inflation in the economy. And how we calculate that? How we calculate GDP deflator? That is equal to nominal GDP over real GDP. तो आप इन दोनों को अगर डिवाइड कर दें तो you will get prices in the economy. जैसा कि हमें पता है कि nominal GDP किस चीज़ के बराबर होती है? Price into output, right? So P into Y is the nominal GDP. If we divide it real output, which is Y, so we'll get prices, right? So we can determine inflation, we can say that inflation is the ratio of nominal GDP to the real GDP. Now, if we take the growth rate of the previous equation, just we have discussed, which is the QTM equation, quantity theory of money. अगर आप ग्रोथ रेट लें तो उसको हम कैसे इस इक्वेशन को लिख सकते हैं? We can rewrite this equation as delta M over M, that is the growth rate of money supply or the change in money supply in the economy, plus delta V over V is equal to delta P over P plus delta Y over Y. And Y, as we know that अगर हम दो पैरामीटर अगर मल्टीप्लाई हो रहे हों और उसका हम ग्रोथ रेट लेते हैं तो वो आपस में जमा हो जाते हैं, ऐड अप हो जाते हैं, राइट? जैसा कि पिछली इक्वेशन में देखा कि एम वी इज इक्वल टू पी वाई, तो लेफ्ट साइड पे एम और वी मल्टीप्लाई हो रहे हैं. जब इसका आप ग्रोथ लेंगे, इसकी आप चेंज लेंगे, इसको डेरिवेशन निकालेंगे तो वो दोनों चीज़ें आपस में ऐड अप हो जाएंगी, डेल्टा एम ओवर एम प्लस डेल्टा वी ओवर V. इसी तरह राइट साइड पे जब आप ग्रोथ रेट अप्लाई करेंगे, दैट विल बिकम डेल्टा P ओवर P प्लस डेल्टा Y ओवर Y. नाउ एज वी नो दैट सिंस V इज ए कांस्टेंट, और जब कांस्टेंट में चेंज आती है, जब कांस्टेंट का आप डेरिवेटिव लेते हैं, राइट, सो दैट विल बिकम जीरो, राइट? So if delta V over V is 0, then this equation will become, and we are left with only delta M over M is equal to delta P over P plus delta Y over Y. So we are left with the delta M over M is equal to delta P over P plus delta Y over Y. So where we can say that delta P, that is change in P over P, is equal to pi, and pi is the notation that we'll use for the inflation here, right? So then if we use pi is equal to delta P over P, then we can rewrite this equation as it is, and that is pi is equal to this equation will become delta M over M is equal to pi plus delta Y over Y. Now if we rearrange this equation, and we can find the inflation, that is pi, from this equation, which is equal to delta M over M minus delta Y over Y. Now what this equation basically shows, this is the final equation that explains the relationship between prices, that is the inflation, and the growth rate of money supply. Now nominal economic growth requires a certain amount of money supply growth rate, as well as that is facilitated with the help of growth rate in output. But as we know that since capital and labor are given to the production process, in the production process, so we assume that if this is given, then change in Y over Y is also given in the long run. So we can say that in the long run इस इक्वेशन में हम बता सकते हैं कि ये जो इन्फ्लेशन है has a direct link with the quantity of money or the growth rate of money supply in the economy. So whenever there is increase in the money supply in the economy, whenever there is change in the money supply in the economy, there will be a change in inflation. जब money supply मुल्क में बढ़ेगी, prices बढ़ जाएंगी. जब money supply कम होगी, उसमें prices कम हो जाएंगी. Now जब मनी सप्लाई हम बढ़ाते हैं, जब फेडरल गवर्नमेंट बढ़ाती है, जब स्टेट बैंक मनी सप्लाई किसी मुल्क में बढ़ाता है, तो इस प्रोसेस को जो नाम दिया जाता है, दैट इज एक्सपेंशनरी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी, राइट? और जब मनी सप्लाई कम की जाती है तो उस प्रोसेस को हम कंट्रक्शनरी मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी का नाम देते हैं, राइट? नाउ द ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ बेसिकली इज टू इंक्रीज मनी सप्लाई इन द इकोनॉमी. सो इफ द गवर्नमेंट want to increase the price level in the economy, तो वो क्या करते हैं? They adopt expansionary monetary policy. अब expansionary monetary policy में गवर्नमेंट क्या करेगी? कि गवर्नमेंट को मनी सप्लाई बढ़ानी है, राइट। अब देखें कि जितनी ज़्यादा मनी सप्लाई आप बढ़ा देंगे, आपकी जो वैल्यू ऑफ मनी है वो उतनी कम हो जाती है। जब वैल्यू ऑफ मनी आपकी कम होती है तो बेसिकली जो परचेजिंग पावर है लोगों की, वो लोगों की परचेजिंग पावर जो है वो कम हो जाती है। यानी कि जो चीज़ पहले 100 रुपए में आती थी, अब वो 200 रुपए में आती है, राइट। सो थिंग्स बिकम एक्सपेंसिव, प्राइसेस जो है चीज़ों की बढ़ना शुरू हो जाती हैं। जब प्राइसेस बढ़ती हैं तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि इकोनॉमी में जो है इन्फ्लेशन हो गया है, राइट। तो मॉनेटरी सप्लाई और मनी सप्लाई जो है ये एक ऐसा टूल है जो कि गवर्नमेंट यूज़ कर सकती है टू रेगुलेट द मार्केट इन द इकोनॉमी। तो जैसा कि आप इस स्लाइड में देख रहे हैं कि हमने वो ये कम अप विद द फाइनल इक्वेशन, वो क्या है, डेल्टा एम ओवर एम, डेल्टा पी ओवर पी, प्लस डेल्टा वाई ओवर वाई। अगर आप हम इस जैसा कि हमने अज्यूम किया प्रीवियस स्लाइड में, हमने ये कहा कि जो डेल्टा पी ओवर पी है, अगर हम इसको अज्यूम करते हैं दैट इज इक्वल टू पाई, दैट इज इक्वल टू इन्फ्लेशन, तो हम ये कह सकते हैं, इसको रीअरेंज करें इस इक्वेशन को, तो वी कैन राइट दिस इक्वेशन पाई इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा एम ओवर एम माइनस डेल्टा वाई ओवर वाई। नॉमिनल इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ requires a certain amount of money supply growth to facilitate the growth in transaction, right? So what we can observe from this equation, and the nominal economic growth जो है किसी country में, it requires a certain amount of money supply growth to facilitate the transactions or the which take place in the economy, the growth of transaction in the economy. Now money growth in excess of this amount leads to inflation, right? एक certain level of growth of money supply require होता है to facilitate transaction in the economy, right? अगर हम ये कहते हैं कि अगर growth rate of money supply उस ऐसे अमाउंट से बढ़ जाती है जो कि एक सर्टन लेवल ऑफ ट्रांजैक्शन के लिए रिक्वायर होती है, अगर ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ मनी सप्लाई उससे बढ़ जाती है तो दिस अमाउंट लीड्स टू इन्फ्लेशन। जैसे कि इस इक्वेशन में देखें कि अगर डेल्टा एम ओवर एम विल बी ग्रेटर देन द डेल्टा वाई ओवर वाई, सो दैट increase in excess in growth of money supply to the output basically leads towards inflation in the economy. जैसा कि शुरू में मैंने कहा था कि we'll try to establish the direct link between inflation and quantity of money with the help of quantity theory of money. तो यहाँ से अगर हम उस चीज़ को शो कर सकते हैं, एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं इस फाइनल इक्वेशन से जो हमारे पास आई, अगर ये जो पोर्शन डेल्टा एम ओवर एम का है, इफ़ इट इज़ ग्रेटर देन दी डेल्टा वाई ओवर वाई, तो this will lead to inflation, right? If delta m over m is less than delta y over y, तो क्या होगा वो, that will lead to decrease in the price level in the economy. तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि delta y over y जो चीज़ है, it depends on growth in the factors of production and technological progress. So हम ये कहते हैं कि change in output over y actual y, or the change in output over output depends on the growth rate of factors of production in the economy, depends how much factors of production are there, and that is the capital and labor. Normally all of these factors are constant, are given in the right. So or suppose they are given, तो हम ये कहते हैं कि ये टर्म ख़त्म हो जाती है, एंड देन वी आर लेफ्ट विद ओनली पाई इज इक्वल टू पाई जो हमारे पास आ जाएगी, दैट विच इज इन्फ्लेशन, पाई इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा एम ओवर एम, जो हम कह सकते हैं कि ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ इन्फ्लेशन और इन्फ्लेशन रेट इज डायरेक्टली और प्रोपोर्शनली रिलेटेड टू द ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ मनी सप्लाई। जब मनी सप्लाई इकोनॉमी में बढ़ जाएगी तो इन्फ्लेशन बढ़ जाएगा, जब मनी सप्लाई इकोनॉमी में कम हो जाएगी तो इन्फ्लेशन कम हो जाएगा। Now this basically is known as the quantity theory of money, which is very important and has important standing in economics, right? And this theory was given by Milton Friedman back in old age, right? So the quantity theory of money predicts one-for-one relationship between changes in money growth rate and changes in inflation rate. So on the basis of QTM, हम ये कह सकते हैं, हम ये रिजल्ट अखज़ कर सकते हैं कि देयर इज़ 1-to-1 relationship between QTM, between the money supply or the growth rate of money supply and the inflation rate in the economy. So this is what we all what want to learn in today's lecture. तो हमने अभी देखा है लास्ट स्लाइड में कि हमने क्या कंक्लूड किया है कि we have concluded that with the help of QTM we can say or we can determine 1-to-1 relationship between prices, between the inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply, and that was the objective of today's lecture. तो हम यहाँ पे this is the last slide of the lecture, last part of the lecture. तो हम कह सकते हैं, हम ये नतीजा अखज़ कर सकते हैं कि मनी सप्लाई का किसी भी कंट्री में, किसी भी इकानमी में डायरेक्ट रिलेशनशिप होता है प्राइसेस के साथ, और मनी सप्लाई जो है वो डिटरमिन करती है प्राइसेस को किसी मुल्क में. I will just try to recap this concept from the previous slides. हमने ये कहा कि जब हमारे पास इक्वेशन आई mv इज इक्वल टू pv, तो यहाँ से हमने कोशिश की कि हमने we try to determine the link between prices and growth rate of money supply. We said that if we assume v is equal to v bar, if v is constant, so then we are left with prices is equal to m into y. तो जब आप growth rate, when we'll take the growth rate, when we'll take the derivative or the change in the two parameters which are multiplied, जब दो फैक्टर, दो इक्वेशन, दो वेरिएबल्स आपस में मल्टीप्लाई हो रहे हों और उसका हम डेरिवेटिव लेते हैं, उसमें हम चेंज लेते हैं, तो वो आपस में ऐड अप हो जाते हैं. तो उसके बाद हमारे पास क्या इक्वेशन आती है, डेल्टा m ओवर m प्लस डेल्टा v ओवर v इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा p ओवर p प्लस डेल्टा y ओवर y. हमने ये कहा इफ वी से दैट कि इफ पाई इज इक्वल टू डेल्टा p ओवर p, if we denote change our growth rate in prices, inflation rate is equal to pi, so then we can rewrite this equation, and the quantity theory of money assumes v is equal to constant. So then if pi is equal to delta p over p, so then we'll get with this equation delta m is equal to delta p over p plus delta y over y. Now solve this for inflation and we have come up with the final equation, which is pi is equal to delta m over m minus delta y over y. So this equation can tell us the direct relationship between prices or the inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply, because as we know that delta y over y is depends on the growth rate of factors of production, that is k and y, and for now if we assume that k and y are given, so we can say that pi is equal to delta m. So students, आज हमने क्या सीखा, what we have learned today. हमने शुरू किया with the definition of money. Money से हमने शुरू किया कि what is money, and the objective of today's topic was to link up the inflation, that is money, with the money supply. Money जब हमने बात की तो हमने ये कहा कि money क्या चीज़ होती है. Money is the stock of assets that are readily used for the purpose of transaction. तो जब आप ट्रांजैक्शन करते हैं इकोनॉमी में, चीज़ों की खरीदो फरोख्त करते हैं, राइट, आपने कोई चीज़ खरीदनी है एज ए कंज्यूमर, एज ए फर्म, एज ए बायर, एज ए सेलर, आप मनी को यूज़ करते हैं एज ए पर्पस और एज ए मीडियम ऑफ एक्सचेंज और फॉर द ट्रांजैक्शन पर्पसेस. इसको हम ऐसे एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हैं कि जब आप देखें ट्रेड जो है इसमें आ सकती है, वी कैन एक्सप्लेन दिस विद द हेल्प ऑफ ट्रेड. Domestically there is a trade internally, there is a trade internationally. तो जब आप डोमेस्टिक ट्रेड की बात करते हैं, एक शहर से दूसरे शहर में ट्रेड होती है. अब जब हम चीज़ों को एक शहर से दूसरे शहरों में बेचते हैं, तो ये जो ट्रांजैक्शन प्लेस करती है, दैट इज़ विद द हेल्प ऑफ मनी. इसी तरह at the country level, जब हम अपने एक दूसरे को हम इन्वॉल्व करते हैं, we engage ourselves with the international trade and we are trading with other countries. We make transaction between the countries with the help of money, right? By using money we can sell goods between the countries. जैसे कि for example there are a lot of imports which we are doing, importing goods from different countries. We're making exports to other countries. Now we can take the help with the help of money or the common currency which is acceptable to all the countries, which is I think dollar internationally, right? We convert our currency into dollar and we exchange or make transaction between the country, right? So money basically is the stock of assets that are used for the purpose of transactions. उसके बाद हमने ये सीखा कि there are different functions of money. Money can be used for different functions. हमने बात की कि पहला money का function क्या है? Money can be used as a medium of exchange, right? So if you want to exchange goods and services within the country and between the country with जिसमें one buyers and seller, between one buyer and seller, between multiple buyers and sellers, so money can be used as a medium of exchange of goods and services. पुराने ज़माने में जब there was no paper money, there was no coin money, goods were exchanged with goods, right? So उसको हम barter system का नाम देते थे, but the medium money was playing its role. Goods basically was used as a money and goods were exchanged with each other, right? किसी ने अगर wheat produce की है and दूसरे ने rice produce की है, तो they can exchange goods with each other and utilize or can get benefit of this exchange. दूसरा जो function हमने money का देखा, that is money can be used as a store of value. You can store money, you can use money for storing different goods for the future use, right? अगर आप predict करते हैं कि future में कुछ चीज़ों की prices बढ़ जाएंगी, तो currently आप उन चीज़ों को खरीद लेते हैं by using your money, and you can use those goods and services in future, right? So money can be used. इसी तरह internationally, domestically, money can be used as a store of value. तो तीसरा फंक्शन हमने मनी का डिस्कस किया, that was money can be used as a unit of account. You can use money as a unit of account, right? You can you can measure the goods in terms of money, right? If we want to, ये specially function हम use करते हैं जब आप trade करते हैं between the countries, तो you convert your currency in terms of the other country currencies and exchange goods and services, right? So money is very, very important. Has three important functions, that is store of exchange of value, medium of exchange जिसे आप कह सकते हैं. दूसरा function इसका है store of value. तीसरा जो इसका function है is the unit of exchange, right? As a unit of value, right? उसके बाद we have discussed that there are two types of money, right? So money has two types. One is the fiat money. Fiat money is that money which has no intrinsic value, जिसकी कोई intrinsic ज़ाहिरन कोई value नहीं है. Like for example paper money. अगर आप जैसे कि पाकिस्तान में अगर बात करें कि 5 रुपए का नोट है, 10 रुपए का नोट है, 20 का नोट है, इसी तरह we have 100 rupees note, then we have 1000 note, 500 note, right? उसकी कोई इंट्रिंसिक ज़ाहिरन उसकी कोई वैल्यू नहीं है, राइट? सिंस इट इज़ ए मनी and that can be used as a medium of exchange, as a store of value for purchasing things, for selling things, right? It has a value, but bazahiran that is a piece of paper, उसकी कोई ख़ास value नहीं है, right? तो fiat money is that money which has no intrinsic value. तो ये भी हमने सीखा. दूसरा हमने बात की second जो हमने बात की, that we talked about the second type of money, which is commodity money. Commodity money is that money which has some intrinsic value. Like in old days में क्या था कि gold को use किया जाता था as a money, as a medium of exchange, right? तो gold was playing a role of money as far as transactions in the country are concerned or between the country are concerned. Since जब गोल्ड जो है itself has some intrinsic value, right? अगर गोल्ड को आप बेचेंगे कहीं पे तो उसकी एक वैल्यू है, उसको आप as a medium of exchange भी यूज कर सकते हैं, but as a product, as a commodity itself, it has some value, right? It has some intrinsic value, right? So two sorts of monies money can prevail in the economy. Two types of money we have. That is, one is the fiat money which has no intrinsic value, other is commodity money which has intrinsic value. उसके बाद हमने बात की different types of definitions की, and we have talked about the difference between money supply and monetary policy. हमने ये कहा कि money supply is the quantity of money which is available in the economy is known as the money supply. And then we have said that monetary policy is the tool which government adopts to control the money supply in the economy. तो monetary policy हमने ये कहा कि एक ऐसा tool है जो कि हम use करते हैं money supply को मुल्क में control करने के लिए. Who control the monetary policy? Who use this monetary policy to control the money supply in the economy? Federal government, or the Fed basically. In case of America, each country has a central bank, right? हर मुल्क में एक central bank होता है. अमेरिका में उसका नाम फेडरल रिजर्व है, फेड के नाम से कहा जाता है, यूज किया जाता है. उसका काम है, फेड जो है वो मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी को यूज करता है और मनी सप्लाई को मुल्क में कंट्रोल करते हैं. इसी तरह अगर हम पाकिस्तान की बात करें तो पाकिस्तान में जो है State Bank is Pakistan is has the authority to control money supply in the economy by using monetary policy. उसके बाद हमने different definitions जो हैं discuss की money supply की. उसमें हमने M1 की बात की, M2 की बात की, M3 की बात की. M1 basically is the currency. Currency जो है, जो सर्कुलेशन ऑफ मनी है, वो हर एक डेफिनेशन में आती है मनी सप्लाई में, राइट. सो सी प्लस जब हमने कहा कि इफ वी ऐड हेयर द डिमांड डिपॉजिट्स एंड सम ट्रैवल चेक्स, सो दैट विल गिव अस द फर्स्ट डेफिनेशन ऑफ मनी सप्लाई विच इज M1. उसके बाद हमने M2 की बात की. M2 में हमने कहा कि इफ वी ऐड अप M1, ऐड अप समथिंग इन M1, लाइक इफ वी ऐड अप द is the deposits, as the short-term deposits, and then we will get the first M2 definition and some other deposits in the bank, so we'll get M2. इसी तरह M3 की हमने बात की जिसमें हमने long term deposit की बात की. अगर हम M2 में if we add up the long term deposit and some other money market mutual funds उसमें ऐड कर दें, we'll get M3 definition of money supply. So हमने तीन different definitions हमने discuss की money supply की, M1 and M2 and M3, right? So any of the definition can be used by any country, right? But most powerful definition of money supply is M3, जिसमें हम we include all kinds of deposits and we add currency also in this definition of money supply. उसके बाद हमने बात की लास्ट पे जो हमने सीखा, we talked about the quantity theory of money. हमने कहा कि quantity theory of money जो है इस ऐसी थ्योरी है जिसके ज़रिए हम एस्टेब्लिश कर सकते हैं कि जो प्राइसेस का लिंक है विद मनी सप्लाई डायरेक्ट है. जब मनी सप्लाई मुल्क में बढ़ती है तो प्राइसेस भी बढ़ जाती हैं. तो हमने ये कहा, हमने ये सीखा कि मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन जो है इज़ द मॉनेटरी इकोनॉमिस्ट. मिल्टन फ्रीडमैन ने एक थ्योरी दी थी एंड दैट थ्योरी वाज क्वांटिटी थ्योरी ऑफ मनी, QTM के नाम से. उसने ये कहा था ग्रोथ रेट ऑफ मनी सप्लाई has a direct or proportional relationship with the growth rate of prices or the inflation rate. तो इसको हमने सीखने के लिए हमने क्या किया, हमने स्टार्ट किया विद द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ वेलोसिटी. वेलोसिटी की जब हमने बात की तो वेलोसिटी क्या चीज़ है, इज़ द अमाउंट और द नंबर ऑफ सर्कुलेशन ऑफ ए पर्टिकुलर डॉलर और नोट इन द इकानमी. तो इसको हमने एक्सप्लेन किया कि अगर सपोज अगर इकानमी में मनी सप्लाई $100 है और अगर हम कहते हैं कि टोटल जो ट्रांजैक्शंस हैं वो 500 दफ़ा हुई हैं, तो हम ये कह सकते हैं कि 5 टाइम्स $1 ने इकोनॉमी में सर्कुलेट किया है, राइट, उसकी सर्कुलेशन हुई है. तो दैट इज़ नोन एज द वेलोसिटी. तो हम कैलकुलेट कर सकते हैं, V कैन बी कैलकुलेटेड एज V इज इक्वल टू टोटल ट्रांजैक्शंस divided by quantity of money supply in the economy. V is equal to T over M. Now if we rearrange this equation, अगर हम यूज़ करें nominal GDP को as a proxy for total transaction in the economy, so we can rewrite this equation V is equal to price into output over M. right? So if we rearrange this equation, we'll get the final QTM equation, that is MV is equal to price into output, right? So this is the quantity theory of money equation, and with the help of this equation we can determine the relationship between prices, the inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply in the economy. लेकिन उसके लिए हमें we have to make some assumptions. तो हमने कौन सी assumption लगाई? We assume that if velocity is constant, or we assume v is equal to v bar, and if we take the growth rate of this equation, so हमें कौन सी equation मिली? We got delta m over m plus delta v over v is equal to delta p over p plus delta y over y. Since we assume that velocity is constant, so we can say that delta v over v is equal to 0. So then we are left with only delta m over m is equal to delta p over p plus delta y over y. Right? Now suppose if we denote delta p over p is equal to pi, which is the notation for inflation. अगर हम ये कहें कि inflation is equal to pi and that is equal to delta p over p, so then we can find inflation from this equation, and by rewriting this equation as pi is equal to delta m over m minus delta y over y. So this equation establishes the direct relationship between inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply. Now as we know that output is determined by the factors of production, which is capital and labor, and for the time being if we assume that K and L are given in the economy, then we can establish one-to-one relationship between inflation rate and the growth rate of money supply, and we can get this equation pi is equal to delta m over m. Now this is the equation. This tells us one-to-one relationship between prices and money supply. So we can say that with the help of this equation, if there is increase in money supply in the economy, this will lead to increase in the general price level in the economy. तो हम कह सकते हैं अगर आप growth rate बढ़ाते हैं money supply की economy में, तो inflation बढ़ जाएगा और growth rate prices में ज़्यादा होगी. So यहीं पे आज का लेक्चर ख़त्म करते हैं. So we have done with this chapter about money and inflation. Till the next time, अल्लाह हाफिज़. नेक्स्ट लेक्चर में मुलाकात होगी इंशाअल्लाह, ज़िंदगी रही तो. बाय दैट टाइम अल्लाह हाफिज़.